forced mandates and having people not able to work because they're being forced to take the beetle wax is the number one national issue emergency that's happening. And what's bizarre about it is that companies, although have the right to hire who they want to work for them, it just seems that someone's pulling the strings for these companies who actually owns the companies to be forcefully making these employees make the decision whether they're going to go to work or not. Now, what's important about this is last year, everyone acts as if the beetle wax is some form of elixir or life-saving thing when it's not for at least 40% of the people in the hospitals in Maryland who had contracted and died and were fully beetle waxed. And that's according to the former CDC director, Dr. Redfield. That's 40%. So knowing this number and all the other numbers of the complications, such as the cancer and colon Powell, rather than making an excuse or coming up with more anti-information about what's happening, why is the media not curious about, one, it being rushed, two, not being fully tested for different groups, age groups, people with pre-existing conditions such as cancer? But the most mind-boggling thing about all of this is the forced mandates dismantling the police in its own way and the healthcare system in its own way. While there's world war outside our country, and I'm not going to sit here and say, well, it's not being reported. The mandates by companies or else is an issue that I just cannot understand. For last year, they were begging people to come to work. And all of a sudden, after all the little tests, it's such a big deal if you're not beetle waxed to come back to work. Number one. Number two, why are companies not doing the small treatments and having the company doctors check their employees anyway, to where they can have the choice whether they would like to or not like to take the beetle wax rather than mandating them or else. This is going to cause not only a supply chain disaster, the fact that how am I going to vote for a president with the last name Bud when the full intention of the Democratic Party is deception? The fact that gas prices in Costa Mesa, California at $5 today. And Pete Buttigieg has no idea on how to get these gas prices lower because he's deliberately making them go higher while there's supply chain crisis. So tell me, who is running not only the administration and the agencies of Nimrodness, but forcing the issue of making employees have to either take the beetle wax or leave their jobs, versus seeing the company doctor and monitoring the employee like that should happen anyway for the employee's safety. To force the issue on the mandate disregards the employee's health and is a form of discrimination. Whether the company has the right to mandate or not mandate, when it does mandate, it is discriminating the employee when the employee has other health issues where he might not be able to take the beetle wax, or if he's already contracted COVID last year. It's a complete disregard for not only the employee's health and safety, but it is a form of discrimination. And it will outweigh, it's $1 million lawsuits per employee if they lose their jobs over a mandate that's not a government company. Now, the government companies forcing the mandates and nurses having to leave their jobs, knowing it's going to cause not only a disaster for law enforcement, but for the hospitals. It just seems as a repetition of what's happening in other places, or in specifically one place. I can't understand the logic of that when they too have their own doctors, temperature checks, tests, and the forcing the issue as if it's some elixir or life-saving thing when it's not for 40% of the people. And the excuse that you keep hearing, I want to remind the media one more time. It was rushed. It wasn't tested long enough. It was rushed. It was not tested long enough. The fact that people think that this is some form of life-saving thing, or they can't go to work, the benefits don't outweigh what's about to happen. And I know if people run out of money because they can't work and can't pay their bills, I don't know what the government expects those people to do except just sit outside and just go starve to death while supply chains have been disrupted 60%. And they're already in starvation mode by the way Pete Buttigieg has not done his job. How am I going to vote for a president with the last name with the first four letters? But now this is where the Democratic Party and the administration is lying to its own party, because the full intention all along is to allow Iran and Russia, specifically Iran, oil back into the marketplace, and why these prices are going up when they close down the pipeline. While there's war in the Syria campaign for 10 years, the administration's about to allow the aggressor, Iran, into the oil marketplace so everyone could buy oil from the Iranian Petroleum Company. Well, how is that dishonest versus the Democratic Party? An actual ground of impeachment. Well, first of all, not only did the administration allow an Iran nuclear deal during a full-scale war massacre for the last 10 years versus civilians, schools, and hospitals all throughout Syria in the Syria campaign, with Russian and Iranian equipment and manpower. The fact the administration has not condemned it and is allowing Iran to actually make money in that war. Both countries, Russia making money in that war versus condemning it. Now, what does this have to do with the Democratic Party and the climate change movement? Well, it has a lot to do with it because he deceitfully and dishonestly told your party that he's a green energy president. And the fact is if he deliberately or allows or intentionally has Iranian oil and the petroleum companies able to sell oil in the American marketplace, on top of the Russian oil coming in, joining OPEC, that will set back the green energy 20 to 25 years, a huge setback. Because the Iranian petroleum companies, once they're in, they're going to do everything they can to not allow green energy to sell their petroleum in the American marketplace so they can use for war in places like in Syria. And the administration's about to allow it. And this is a huge breach of trust. It's an actual ground for impeachment. So I'm calling the news before the announcement occurs to the Green Party of the Democratic Party. Your president is about to pull a fast one versus the members that are climate conservative and concerned about the environment within its own caucus by allowing Iran and their petroleum companies into the marketplace. And that's one reason why they closed down the American pipeline versus gradually closing down the Keystone pipeline and then going green energy with a 10 to 15 year plan so those people don't lose their jobs immediately and then move into green energy. He just pulled a fast one on the American people and his own party, in my opinion, a ground for impeachment. I'm going to leave the take right there. If the president's administration allows Iran to join OPEC and bring Iranian oil and petroleum into the U.S. marketplace, while the Syria campaign is not concluded or at no war, that's a breach of trust in foreign policy. And I'm going to talk about that in 3 different takes, the grounds of impeachment. But the first one, the dishonesty to his own party, claiming he's a green energy president when it's not true. He's intentionally about to allow the Iranian petroleum companies into OPEC and then into the U.S. marketplace. Infrastructure, no infrastructure. Pete Buttigieg has no ability to use that money to have a climate change infrastructure with knowing the information that we already have. They haven't even lifted a finger yet. So as soon as they allow the Iranian oil into the marketplace is when you ask them about the question, well, why are you doing it? None of it will matter because the fact is, then they will not ever have had the intention of cleaning the environment in the first place. And I'm going to leave the take right there. By breaching the trust within its own party, the administration is about to do it as soon as this occurs when they allow the Iranian oil into the marketplace while these prices are at $4.99 in Costa Mesa, California. YouTube.com, Jamestown, California.